political implications. I'm not going to get into them right now. I know the other speakers will be soon, as you will hear on the DVD also. And also about the cover-up. It's 58 years old. I'm 58 years old. Okay? It'd be going on longer, I'm not sure, but that's how long the government has been hiding this from us. And as a matter of fact, when this first started, they were just as confused as you and I are right now about this. They didn't know what to do. They were just as frightened as anything. When I think about the implications, they still don't know what to do. I'm talking about military and government. I'm not talking about big corporations. They know exactly what's going on, and we'll get into that later. Our mission, basically, to engage mainstream media. That's what we're here for. A long-term, sustained examination and comprehensive investigation of multiple, what I call converging lines of evidence. You look at all the information, and there's so many lines of evidence. In a court of law, that's the way they develop things. They develop converging lines of evidence so the jury can come up with only one conclusion, guilty or not guilty. If you take this information to the bank or to a court of law, those converging lines of evidence, you look at all the evidence, not just one strain. If you look at all of the evidence, you'll come up with the undisputable conclusion that there's an extraterrestrial presence. And that this thing called unidentified objects or unidentified aerial phenomena are in fact true. Okay? Where they come from, who makes them, are they ours, are they theirs? Those are questions that we need to broach in the discourse. We can't provide all the answers right now. Okay? The major goals of what we're trying to do is, in the long term, engage the government. Huge task. Insurmountable, like pushing a boulder up a mountain. To establish a formal disclosure process by the government and its agencies regarding the unidentified aerial phenomena. And I'll get into this in a second. Because this is not a confrontational thing. We do not want to begin accusing our government. Because most elected officials have no idea what's going on anyways. It's the people in the back rooms or underground. Long-term objectives? To create a partnership with government. And we are moving towards that. And media, educational institutions, private industry, social institutions, to facilitate a process of disclosure that engenders cooperation and a gradual transition concerning the knowledge that we are being visited by off-world civilizations. You see where I'm going with this? We need to engage the public, everyone. And that's the role of the media. We can't do it. You guys have to get this information out. The peaceful use of space. Right now, it is a foregone conclusion in many people's minds that space-based weapons are there. They have the capacity to do just about anything you want. And if you look at all the information again, there are weapons out there that you cannot imagine. I'm hoping Dr. Greer might be able to broach that issue with us this evening. Transitions from fossil fuels to new forms of energy. That's it in a nutshell, folks. And if the press wants to ask a question about that later on, please. That's the hitch right there. We're driving around in our cars, we're burning gas, diesel fuel, and there are extraterrestrial civilizations, off-world civilizations who have energy forms that we have no idea about, that can move at or beyond, way beyond light speed. Okay? You say, well, he's making that up. No, I'm not. Another thing you can take to the bank. I don't mean to be overly aggressive here, but I'm a teacher by profession. And when I challenge my learners, and I'm considering everyone in this audience right now a learner, and actually there's one person in the audience right now who was a learner of mine as a student teacher, and she knows how hard I can push. All my students. And I take it, it's one thing, everybody does things really, really well. It's the one thing I know in my life that I can do really, really well. So I'm trying to be instructive here and challenge you as learners. I call it brushing it fur the other way. In other words, if I don't upset you this evening, I'm not doing my job. If I don't challenge you this evening, I'm not doing my job as a teacher. So that's why I'm putting this effort into not convincing, but showing you to look in this direction. Only some of the evidence. And these are some of the standard things that people think about when they think of UFOs. But It's part of the converging lines of evidence. It's not the major part, but it's part of it. Worldwide sightings are on the rise. They're going up every day. Just in Canada alone, 769 reports. These are just reports from RCMP officers. I have a file in my briefcase of 117 pages from the Ministry of Defense of reports by citizens, police officers, RCMP officers, and NORAD jets scrambled to chase these things. NORAD jets, not just once or twice, they do it on a regular basis. There it is. I read my mind. All those who are involved in psychability, raise my hand. Get it? Yeah. Okay. UFO sightings in Canada increased over the past 16 years. These are just little tidbits of information. They're relatively meaningless in the long term, but if there's a novitiate out there who are uninformed, these are interesting facts. But this is something that I was involved in 20 years ago. I'm no longer interested in seeking out lights in the sky. This is a geopolitical issue for me. And we want to deal with tonight's main issue. We have testimony by ranking military officers, pilots, ICBM launch commanders, air traffic controllers, corporate executives, an FAA accident investigation, a senior that I think is one of the top 3, if I'm not mistaken.
He was the head of it.
He was the head of the accident investigation unit for the Federal Aviation, whatever the other A is for. And also statements by Paul and by Stephen this evening. So that's basically it. And what I'd like to do now is take a run at, if you can just give me a second here to actually we do the DVD. Yes, let's do the DVD now. Do we do that now? Okay. Because if we do that now, then we can have Paul and Stephen come up after that. So just give me a second, and I'll set it up for you here on the screen. You can chat among yourselves. If you want to go to the washroom, raise your hand. I should tell you that I will be bouncing around in this because the bookmark's set up. So I'll be going from speaker to speaker all over the place. So there's it will flow if you watch it for the full 2 hours. We just don't have time. So I'll be going back and forth, if that's okay with everyone. Make this stuff up. So, those of you, once again, in the press, you've now been empowered with a little bit of information. And that sense of empowerment, I think, is changed now from when you first walked in the door. And I'm hoping that when you do, take the stuff back to your editors. Okay? You've only heard, one half of this evening's presentation about. We're going to talk about now the implications that Brigadier General Stephen Lufkin alluded to with corporations and how President Eisenhower was sold out. So now we have a body of information, and now we're going to proceed to try to come to grips with what the geopolitical implications are of this, and which is even more staggering. So what I'm going to do now is introduce someone that I feel very, very strongly about, and he came forward last September 25th. And he's not a ufologist. He's not someone who is steeped in this information. He's someone who has served our country in the bravest of ways by coming forward and using his name and his integrity. And believe me, when you get into this field, your integrity is at stake. Make no mistake about that. Criticism comes from all sections. So I wanted to introduce to you the Honorable Paul Hellyer, who, as you probably know, served as the Minister of National Defense under the Lester B. Pearson government here in Canada. And last September he said, as Michael alluded to, that UFOs are as real as the planes that fly over our head. And those words will resonate in Canadian society, as far as I'm concerned, until this issue comes to the forefront. And once again, I don't want to harp on it, but the media, I challenge you to engage this issue in the most stringent of ways. And don't let anyone tell you that this stuff is bogus, because it is information that is profound. And then we have a man here at Paul Hellyer who's willing to stand up and be counted and say, people, please listen. So, ladies and gentlemen, Paul Hellyer.
Thank you, Victor, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming out tonight and learning more about what I consider to be one of the most important subjects facing the future of the world at the present time. As Victor said last September, I went public as someone who believes that UFOs are real. I didn't do that on a whim. I was totally convinced. I read a book, which I would commend to any of you who are interested in the subject, written by Colonel Philip J. Corso, retired United States Army intelligence officer, who actually saw one of the cadavers and who was involved in feeding some of the wreckage from the Roswell crash into United States industry to be reverse engineered for the benefit of the United States military forces, the Army in particular, which was the force that he was working for, and also, as it turned out, for some of us. In his book, he makes it clear that some of the ideas were not new ideas, but what happened was that with the help of the technology from the wreckage at Roswell, the United States industry was able to speed up the development of a whole range of products, to speed it up immeasurably by years, and in some cases maybe even decades. And so this was something that really influenced me, and I told this story in September. I'll repeat it again. I just happened to take this book with me when I was going on holiday last summer, and I was reading it. My nephew, Philip, came along, asked me what I was reading, and I told him, gave him a little bit of the information from the book, and he said, well, I'm very skeptical, and walked away. 2 days later, he phoned me and said, I just talked to my friend, who's a retired general in the United States Air Force, and I mentioned the book to him, and he said, every word is true and more. Well, that was good to hear when I had already made up my mind that this was authentic stuff. I went through my mind and said, is it possible that someone could fabricate this story? Is it possible that it could be like the life of Pi, and that someone had just had such a wonderful imagination that they could put together all this stuff? And I came to the conclusion that the answer was no. There were too many dates, too many real people that I knew about, and too many facts that were impossible to refute. So before I went public in September, I phoned Philip and asked him if he would give me the general's number, because I had met him at a air show a couple of years earlier, and phoned him. So I did, and hello, General, it's good to talk to you, and I think Philip told you why I'm calling. It's about Corso's book, and he just repeated every word of it's true and more. So then for 20 minutes, he proceeded to talk